The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. Boy, once upon a time, I really enjoyed Steve Kerr because, of course, he was one of the guys who benefited from Michael Jordan's return to the tune of 3 championships. Kerr replacing Paxson as the sharpshooter. Highest three-point shooting percentage in NBA history, Steve Kerr. Great fun to watch as a compliment on Michael Jordan's championship teams. And then, embarked on a coaching career, very successful, of course, as we know, particularly with the Warriors. But recently, as the NBA has become more politicized, and sports leagues generally, professional sports leagues generally, so has Steve Kerr, and it all started with a dive into the NBA's relationship with China that really came to the forefront when former Houston's GM Daryl Morey was rebuked for daring to side with Hong Kong protesters against their Chinese communist overlords. And Steve Kerr, who was freewheeling with his commentary on matters political and policy, was quiet when it came to those protests in Hong Kong, those Hong Kongans protesting for freedoms similar to those enjoyed by we here in America. Steve Kerr had this to say about that topic at the time.
Actually, I don't. I mean, it's a really bizarre international story, and a lot of us don't know what to make of it. So it's something I'm reading about, and just like everybody is, but I'm not going to comment further.
It's a bizarre international story. It's difficult to comment on. He was going to seek counsel from his brother-in-law, Chinese history professor, so he could figure out what's going on with these young people protesting for freedom against communist overlords in China. It's real complicated. It's interesting because Steve Kerr had no problems comparing the United States to China when it came to human rights record in defense of China. But he has a problem rallying to the defense of Hong Kongans in pursuit of freedom. Interesting.
It has not come up in terms of people asking me about it, people discussing it. No. Nor has our record of human rights abuses come up either. Things that our country needs to look at and resolve, that hasn't come up either. So none of us are perfect, and we all have different issues that we have to get to. And saying that is my right as an American. Doesn't mean that I hate my country. It means I want to address things, right? But people in China didn't ask me about, people owning AR-15s and mowing each other down in a mall. I wasn't asked that question. So we can play this game all we want and go all over the map, and, there's this issue and that issue. And the world is a complex place, and there's more gray than black and white.
Let's play this game, Steve. A criminal killing somebody is equivalent in terms of a comment on society as the government setting up concentration camps for a minority group of Muslims to the tune of 1 million people in China, for example. Repressing Hong Kongans, for example. Let's talk about that, Steve. Let's get Steve Kerr talking. I wonder how freewheeling he was in furtherance of this new biography on Steve Kerr from Scott Howard Cooper, who's an award-winning sports journalist and author of Steve Kerr, A Life. Scott Howard Cooper, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Sorry to focus on politics when I'd rather talk about sports, but unfortunately, Steve Kerr and so many in the NBA have forced basketball fans to talk about politics, so I'm happy to talk about Steve Kerr and go round and round with him. Did you get a chance to go round and round with him on these topics?
Not on these topics, no. I'd been a part of the conversations in a group setting with him, but I did not have any one-on-one time with him on that or anything else. He didn't want anything to do with this project and made it clear in a very polite way, said it was nothing personal, but just didn't want that kind of attention. So this book was done without his cooperation. I did not share his thoughts on those matters or any others, but I certainly am aware of his thinking from everything that you've just noted previously.
Yeah.
Well, what do you think formed his opinions?
On these international
Yeah,
issues?
Yep.
His life, his entire life story, is his unique background of having grown up in different cultures. His parents and his grandparents have deep roots in the Middle East. They're American citizens, but they had been teachers and college administrators. So he had lived in a lot of different cultures in the Mideast, in Europe, briefly in Northern Africa, and then a lot in Southern California. And his parents were always encouraging him to be an individual thinker, not just Steve, but his brothers and sister as well. And then as he grew up, he was a college freshman when his father was killed in the Middle East, in Beirut. And then throughout his career, he has crossed paths with a lot of people that have been impacted by gun violence and terrorism. So it's part of his life story that it's not just a basketball story, and it's a unique background, and that is what all comes together to kind of form the guy that Steve Kerr is today.
Yeah, although it's interesting. Was he? I mean, I don't recall. This is a neutral question. Was he outspoken when he was a player on these topics? Because I don't recall that.
He was not outspoken, but if he was asked, he did not shy away from it. It's been one of the several interesting personality changes in his life. As you noted, this is not something he was known for. He was always in the media. People were always going to him. He was always trying to be cooperative, so it's not like he was a wallflower or anything. But you're right. This was not something that he was known for during his 15 years in the NBA. But over time, he's gone from the guy that was willing to speak if asked to the guy that not only was hoping to be asked, but encouraged to be asked. Remember, he showed up at the NBA Finals at a pregame press conference wearing a T-shirt about gun rights.
Right.
So obviously, knowing that somebody would ask him about that. So it has been one of the personality changes in his life that now he not only is willing to answer those questions, but encourages them.
Do you think that it's the NBA has changed over the time since Steve Kerr was a player to being coach? Let's say the last 20 years, and even Greg Popovich too, who likes to pop off on these topics. It's changed so much. I mean, it's so much a players' league, more than it's ever been. And do you think these coaches feel pressure to sort of run cover for what they're hearing from players, particularly outspoken players like, I don't know, LeBron James, but others? And so they need to feel like they need to step out in order to continue to enjoy their post as a coach and continue to have the fealty of their players.
I think, and this is obviously just an anecdotal evidence. There's no actual survey that's been done, but my sense from having been around it for all those years is that everybody has become a lot more outspoken, not just the NBA, but society as a whole, not just professional athletes, but certainly everybody. I don't think, if you're asking me is that why Steve has changed and become more outspoken, the answer is no. I think this is who he is.
Okay.
He's not trying to run cover for anybody. He is who he is, and is willing to live with the people that don't like it and embrace the people who do like it. He's always willing to have the conversation. He doesn't necessarily want the argument, and he doesn't want.
Yeah, clearly.
He doesn't want. What's that?
No, clearly he doesn't want the argument. He just wants.
Well, no, but he'll have the conversation.
Yeah.
If it's somebody that's going to be accusing him of saying that he's just doing it to run for cover or different things like that, that's a different matter. But I think he has shown a willingness to have the conversation with people who disagree with him. He's been doing that for many, many years, back since he was a general manager, long before he got to the Warriors. So Steve Kerr, Greg Popovich, some of the other people, this is not them trying to look good for anybody. This is who they are and what they believe, and they're going to stand up for what they see.
And by all accounts, I mean, Steve Kerr is a wonderful man. I mean, I've met him, been to his house in Tucson. My mom was his insurance agent, and I was at a party at his house. Ricky Birdsong was there, and Brian Williams was there, and Sean Elliott was there, but there was like 20 of us. And both Brian Williams and Ricky Birdsong were killed in gun attacks. I mean, just think about how, violence is so a part of Steve Kerr's life, with his father being assassinated and then two of his friends getting shot.
Well, I don't think we know that Brian Williams, Bison Daly, I don't think we know that for sure that he died from gunfire.
Well, his brother shot him on the boat in San Diego.
Did he shoot him? Do we know that for sure? Because I don't think the body
was never recovered. Yeah.
We know we suspect certainly that he was killed, but we don't know how it happened. But that's a minor point. But even more so than that, a lot of the people that he connected with through life were greatly impacted. And people know the stories in Chicago. Obviously, Michael Jordan, lost his father. Scott Williams, both of his parents in a murder-suicide from gunfire. Ricky Birdsong was very popular with everybody who met him. And you go down the line, Pete Myers. His mom works on UCLA campus in the Fulbright program, and there was a murder-suicide when Steve was coaching the Warriors. So this has been something that has become all too common to him in his life, and that's why I said that obviously his father is certainly the number one factor in his beliefs on gun violence and gun rights. But there have been many other times that he's been surrounded by these issues as well. And I agree with you that he is a great guy, and that's coming from somebody that he made this project difficult on. But you've been there, you know how people feel about him. And you can disagree with him on a lot of his political stands, and obviously people will. But even people who are on the other side of him find him to be a good person.
What do you think the future is for the NBA with, the handle right now, as you've undoubtedly heard, is that America is no longer the NBA's primary market. It's China. And this has been only increased in terms of profile and discussion over the last year plus during the pandemic. As somebody who covers the beat, what's your take?
Well, I don't know that I've heard that America is not the NBA's primary market. Certainly they're going into China, and it's a huge investment, and there are a lot of moral issues for them to wrestle with as they do it, but it's not like you've turned their back. The NBA has not turned its back on the United States by any means. I think that to your larger question of the direction and the NBA's future, I think that they need to become more clear themselves on how they want to speak about this relationship. If you're dealing with China in particular, there's no question that they have badly mishandled the China situation. There's been a lot of hypocrisy. There's been a lot of mangled statements, and that includes Steve. And when he tried to duck and dodge, as the clips you played at the top of the segment, that was, to put it in basketball language, it was a terrible turnover. He really mishandled that, and he came out later and said he mishandled it. Steve Kerr can rest on a lot of different statements when it comes to any issue, whether it's domestic policy, basketball, but he cannot say, I was not aware, I don't have that much information.
Right.
As you said, his brother-in-law is something of a China expert. Steve is a guy that has always been known to read the media, watch the news, newspapers, magazines, online. He certainly was up to date on anything to do with protests in China, so he badly mishandled that. And what Steve needs to do is decide on his stance moving forward, and that's the NBA as a whole. As I said, they've really mishandled the whole situation. And I think that moving forward, a key thing for the league is to decide what is their public stance on this and how are they going to back it up.
Do you think Steve Kerr could start right now today as the shooting guard for the Bulls? 'Cause I think it's possible that they bring him back.
Yeah, well, I would say he had trouble starting in his prime for any team. So with his knees that are shot right now and some of the back problems, but I think that was more of a question regarding the Bulls roster than about Steve's ability. I saw that dig in there.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think you picked up on that.
Yeah, exactly. I think if you put him out on the court now and he didn't have to move and put a burn in those knees, that he could still hit his share of standstill jumpers, yes.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Bulls don't move on defense, so what's the difference? Scott Howard Cooper, he is the award-winning sports journalist and author of Steve Kerr, A Life. Scott, thanks for joining us. Good luck with the book.
Thanks. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Connect with Dan and Amy using the AM 560 mobile app. Download it today at 560theanswer.com/mobile.
Free up your time. With Steel, you can spend less time working on your yard and more time doing the things you love. Not sold at Lowe's or the Home Depot, Steel is only available through our 10,000 local Steel dealers. Real Steel. Find yours at steeldealers.com. Lowe's